It's a golden anniversary for the sport of luge, the 50th FIL Luge World Championships. Originally scheduled for Whistler, Canada to be held in early February, this event, due to the pandemic, has moved to Königssee, Germany, which is a pretty popular spot for the athletes, a gorgeous spot for the spectators. Unfortunately, not a lot of spectators here to enjoy the warm conditions, 44 degrees. This will be a challenge for the athletes, the warm temperatures on this refrigerated track in Königssee, Germany. Hi again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer. Welcome to coverage as we get ready for the men's singles world championship competition. To tell us a little bit more about today's event and give us a tour down this historic track, I'm pleased to introduce the two-time Olympic medalist from Canada, Alex Goff. Welcome back, Alex.
Thanks, Tim. Good to be here. We have a point of view camera coming down the track now, and the athlete on the sled is Julian Wunschleinich, who is doing a engineering degree in Germany and was part of this point of view where they have applied a number of data points to, and you can see the steering and the G-forces and how the athlete is turning in relation to the corners and the roll angle, and of course speed as we go down the track.
It's such a great track. It's such a technical track. It's the favorite of so many of the athletes in the world. As we look at the start list, a 40-man field in today's two-run men's singles competition, all of the top will go early. That's different than the normal World Cup format where the seeded athletes are the last to go. But keep in mind as we move along the start list that only the top 25 of these 40 will make it in to run number 2. Reed Watts at position number 26, the lone Canadian. There are 3 Americans, Rupert Staudinger representing Great Britain, although this is his hometown on his home track. It will be interesting to see how the track holds out from start to finish as we open things up with Max Langenhahn, who's also competing, he's the favorite in a race within the race, the under-23 competition, which accompanies the World Championship. Max Langenhahn, one-time race winner earlier this year on the World Cup.
Max is one of the younger athletes on the German team. He has become more of a mainstay in the last couple of years, but is still in competition with a number of other young German men to make it onto this World's team and to be on the World Cup team every week through the season.
So Felix Loch has won 9 of the 12 races this year, counting yesterday's sprint. One of the 3 he did not win was won by this German, Langenhahn.
And having a great run here and proving himself on the...
Check it out, track record. 48.891. Now that's a track record on a 44-degree day. So that's amazing. And we should note, however, Alex, the humidity is down, and humidity can be an enemy to a luger, right?
That does make more sense. If the humidities come down, typically that's what causes frost to build up on the track. And despite warm conditions, if the humidity is lower, the track crew is able to maintain a faster track on a race day.
Watzi is the mascot at these World Championships, named after the nearby Watzmann Mountain, which this track sits on the side of, the flanks of the Watzmann. Now Zeman Pavlichenko. The next 5 athletes are all either world champions or Olympic champions or Olympic medalists, and Pavlichenko took the world title in 2015 in Zigulda, a track where the Russians always do well.
A little slower than Max at the start. Zeman can be very fast on the track, and he's moved into the green. He is known for being a bit inconsistent, however, so hopefully see him come down and have, a couple of mistakes there out of S4.
Right, a double tap. And that puts him into the red.
If he can keep the rest of his run clean, he can probably stay quite close to Max and have an opportunity on the second run to move up his position.
To the finish now. He has been in the red since the Kreisel. Now uphill skidding some more and losing a little more time. 1/10 of a second back. That's somewhat reminiscent of the Sheeks brothers run earlier today in the doubles, where they had great speed going, but a couple of errors, especially late.
Yeah, they. It's hard to get really nice lines through the last two corners. They tend to produce some sideways pressures if you're not careful, and often result in bumping a wall here and there. And you can see he goes quite late or quite early into the last corner, and then early again here. So.
Pavlichenko, we'll have more excitement from him later on in run number 2. Now David Gleisha is getting ready to go. Yesterday he captured bronze behind his brother, who won the sprint competition. Last year, Alex, a lot of drama. David had the lead after one run at the World Championship in Sochi, and as the final sled down in the second heat, he had a crash. And his parents were there. They had made the trip to Russia, having not seen him win the Olympic gold. So that was sort of a dramatic moment.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate to be sitting in first place and have a crash on your second run. Unfortunately, that's kind of the nature of the sport, and especially when you're in that kind of position and going forward in a high-pressure race, that can happen.
26-year-old, he's looking pretty solid right now. The Austrian sleds were as fast as anyone for the men yesterday in the sprint competition. Still keeping it close.
Yeah, holding pretty good time here, a little bit behind, about 600ths. We'll see how he makes his way through these final two corners.
Losing more time, even losing time to Pavlichenko, who made all sorts of errors down in the final few curves. So advantage Russia over Austria, but major advantage still Max Langenhahn, the 21-year-old who led things off with a track record, has the early lead.
And David looks like he might have had a bit of a loop in Kreisel and lost a little time as he came into that lower section. And unfortunately, after Echo Wall, it's uphill, so any speed you lose before that just compounded by the uphill nature of those last couple of corners.
Well, one of my, as I told you right before the race, one of my sentimental favorites for this competition is this man, Johannes Ludwig from Germany. He's the Olympic bronze medalist, has yet to podium in his career at the World Championships. Actually, I stand corrected. He has one bronze, but it's been a long career. It was a career that was nearly over 3 or 4 years ago, and he's stuck with it and has become one of the most consistent sliders on tour.
And he was the bronze medalist after Felix had some mistakes in the Olympics and also raced the team relay. So he became an Olympic bronze and gold medalist, which led to him extending his career into this next quad. And he's in the green here today.
5 World Cup victories in his career, none of them this season, although he has had 5 podiums. Back into the red.
A little behind, yep.
It'll be really interesting to see how well this course holds up. Ludwig crosses the finish line. He's well within the hunt. It's Germany 1-2. Felix Loch still to come in a couple of sleds. But Johannes Ludwig will be in the discussion, I suspect, as we move our way down towards the end of run number 2 later this afternoon.
That was a really great run from Johannes, and he's for there, really nice line, really straight out of S4. Beautiful line here, chicanes. Looking pretty relaxed on the sled, which is always important.
Now, the next for Russia, the defending world champion, Roman Repilov. Last year on his home track in Sochi, Roman won the sprint title and the two-run Classic World Championship race. Not having a great season, a decent season this year, but he's fallen off a bit, back in 7th place in the World Cup standings with one race to go. The Russians are competing as RLF, the Russian Luge Federation, this week at the championships as mandated by CAS. Different uniforms, different flag, different name. And on course, can he catch up to the Germans here?
Pretty much dead even right now. It shows him in the red, but he was only 1,000ths behind. And there he's pulled ahead a little bit through the S-corners.
He really has been the closest thing to Felix Loch to greatness over the past 3 or 4 years, coming out of juniors where he was a 2-time junior world champion. Repilov well into the green. Let's see what happens here in the final few curves. He does it. Obviously, anyone that takes over the lead will do it with a track record at this point. So it's a 48.805. The previous track record, by the way, that Langenham broke a second ago was from Felix Loch. That was back in 2015, I believe, at the German National Championships.
And here you can see Roman coming through the chicanes. Really nice line. Peeking a little bit to make sure that his making it clean through there, but looking really relaxed and comfortable on the sled.
Okay, all eyes back to the top in a moment. Repilov of Russia has the lead, but the most recent World Cup champion, Felix Loch, who clinched that title a few weeks ago, he grabs the start handles on his home course. Felix with 9 victories this season in 12 races. And with a win here at the World Championships, it would be world title number 7. That would move him ahead of the great Armin Zugler into first place all time. Good start.
Really good start. He's, I think, only a couple hundredths off the start record there, and he's always been known for having a very powerful start. Germans all are. Looking like he's having a good run so far, and it's really been Felix's kind of comeback season with the number of victories he's had. He was kind of held off the podium or out of gold last year on a World Cup stage. So
we've seen it go from red to green, and now red again. It's sort of like a busy freeway. As he makes his way, will it be the lead? It'll be close either way, I believe. By 2,000ths of a second. That was an exciting run for the viewer, if no one else, Alex. We saw the lead change, so to speak, about 5 or 6 times during that run.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always hard to tell in that bottom section of the track how much speed they're carrying in to the uphill section, and if that will allow them to have that, or whether it'll allow someone like Felix to move from red to green, and in a really tight run like that, it's anyone's guess from a viewer's standpoint.
6 sleds in, and it is Germany leading over Russia with 2 more Germans to follow. You just saw a look at some great champions. Tatjana Höfner, there's George Hackl, who's sort of the personal mentor, coach, and sled builder for Felix. But now we have Dominic Fishnaller. Bit of a down day yesterday in the sprint for Fishnaller, who finished off of the podium. That's a somewhat rare occurrence for this great Italian, usually one of the steadier athletes on tour. Dominic with a career bronze medal. That's his lone podium in Worlds.
And he's been having a really good world. So I'm sure he'll be looking to build on that here.
Fishnaller making his way down to the lower part of the track, well into the red, and skidding, and over.
Oh no!
That is just a huge surprise for one of the steadiest athletes on tour.
That is so unfortunate and so disappointing to see that Dominic has crashed and will not finish the race.
The 27-year-old multi-time World Cup event winner is okay, stood right up. What happened here, Alex?
Looks like he just didn't quite steer through the first chicane enough and caught the right wall as it comes in a bit. You do have to drive the sled through that chicane section, and if you aren't able to keep the sled kind of in that middle ground between those banked chicanes, it's really can end in disaster as it has here.
Italy earlier today had a great doubles competition, no podiums, but 3 sleds in the top 7 in that event, including the under 23 world champions Nagler and Malaya. They will still have a couple of more shots at top 10 here in men's singles. But we move along to the Latvian Arturs Garznieks. Arturs having his best season so far in his career, with a 4th place finish on his home track. And he's been out in the seeded group for most of this season. After the first few events, he no longer had to qualify, which is always a big thing for the athletes.
It's always really nice once you've made it into that seeded group to not have to race Nations Cup. It really takes some pressure off your weekend, or the Friday leading into the weekend, so that you don't have to race off to be in the World Cup. Archers is having a good run here. Time is in the red, but looking really solid.
0.2 of a second back. We have some Austrians coming up in a moment. They figure to be the last couple that could challenge for the podium positions here in run number 1, at least based on what we've seen so far this season and this week in Königssee. Archer's back in 7th place out of the 7 that have come down, nearly a half second behind Felix Loch. So it's a little different dynamic here, Alex, because of these front runners, the Germans and Rapilov, they're done. They went early, and with the break between the heats and all of these athletes, it's going to be about 2 hours before they go again. How do you deal with such a, that's almost like the Olympics where you have to sit on it overnight, right?
It is, and it's a bit of a different format than the World Cup, where the seeded group will go at the end of the first run. They changed this for World Championship because we don't have a qualifying run, and everyone gets to take the first run in World Championships. So rather than having the top athletes at the end, if the track is deteriorating, they go at the beginning and have the chance to take their runs on better ice than maybe the last sets might.
The third of the 3 Russians now grabbing the handles is Alexander Gorbatsevich, who last year finished 6th at his home World Championships in Sochi, Russia. The 4th Russian, by the way, Pavel Rapilov, the younger brother of Roman, pulled out of the race just before the start. He had a crash the other day in the qualifying for the sprint.
We hope that Pavel is okay and recovers from his crash quickly.
Gorbatsevich, you see there 122.9 kilometers an hour. That translates to 76.3 miles per hour. And
having a decent run and clean through the bend-away and chicane sections, but a little behind here.
8th place out of 8 is, yes, a little behind. If you look at the start list, Alex, is it safe to say that the remaining threats, at least to the top 3, would come from any of the next 3 or 4? After that, it's just maybe different goals.
Yeah, probably. It's looking like it will likely come from the athletes that are going in the top 15 sleds here. There could be some standouts from the group after that, but we will have to see what happens and if the track can hold up and allow for that.
Well, there's a legend in the sport taking in the action. They let at least some spectators in. Josef Fendt, the long-time 26-year president of the International Luge Federation, who stepped down from that post late last year. And he is, of course, in his hometown. He's a former mayor, or whatever the term is, here in Berchtesgaden. So why not let him in? He's got a lifetime pass, right?
Oh, I'm sure he does. He'll always be able to show up at any race and get a chance to watch, no matter the circumstances. So always good to see him out.
Riks Rozitis of Latvia, high on the walls of the S corners, and he pays the price with a tap out of S4 and already at 1/4 of a second behind Felix Loch.
And he's having a bit of a rough run. Looks like he's just kind of keeping control, and it's leading to a little bit of a slower time. He'll be about 6 or 7 tenths back here. Oh wow, losing even more time.
And really, the last 3 that have come down have had the slowest time at that point. I hope that that's not a trend that continues, especially with the 3 Austrians about to come, all of whom could contend for podium positions. And yes, the advantage, Alex, of going early here, especially on a day like today, is amazing.
Absolutely. You'll get the freshest ice that's just been prepared, and you can see here as we're looking at Riks come out of the S4 corner, you're starting to see the defined lines from each individual sled, and that's usually an indication that we're seeing some track deterioration. We'll see how these Austrians do. Yeah,
that's a look at Renny Friedel. He's the head coach of the Austrian program. And the next 3, all from Austria, all world champions. Müller and Gleicher, world sprint champions, are on deck. But here's Wolfi Kindl. He made a big show out of it on his home track in 2017, winning the sprint and the 2-run world championship race.
And Wolfie's a very strong slider. Always expects to perform well, and yesterday he had a crash in the sprint, so he'll be looking to have a really good first run here.
And when he had that crash, he looked as if he might be contending for the podium at that point. Had a lot of speed going. This is out of the Kreisel, 360 degrees and a smooth exit, but way back.
He was about a 1/4 of a second back at the last split, so we'll see how he finishes up here at the end.
In 7th place, so he bucked the trend a little bit. He doesn't become the 4th in a row to come down in position of his bib number, but still, he is some 4/10 of a second behind leader Felix Loch. He is about 3/10 of a second off of the podium position.
And it looked like he had a really good run. No major mistakes that you could see as he came down. So whether there was something we couldn't see or if it's sled setup or track deterioration, it's hard to tell.
Well, Renny Friedel's still got a couple of more of his pupils getting ready. The focus on the eyes of Jonas Müller. These athletes wait until the last second to put that shield down with one large exhale beforehand. And people who have gotten used to wearing masks this year, Alex, especially with glasses on, understand how quickly these things can fog up, right? Müller, surprise world champion 2 years ago at the big event in Winterberg, Germany. He has backed that up with a couple of World Cup victories since then.
And a really good start time at just a couple of thousandths back from Felix.
Pretty high on that S2 wall, or was that S1? I'm not sure. But
S2, S3, and that's pretty normal for the men. You want to gain as much height in those two corners without tapping the top or tapping it too hard to help build speed through those corners and make it easier to drive. So you have to do less work through those corners.
That's a great point. And now he's down at the bottom of the labyrinth section, uphill to the finish. Not bad. Very similar to the other Austrians. In fact, 3 of the 4 Austrians have come down. Right now they're in 6th, 7th, and 8th place. Austria's already won 2 medals at these World Championships, both yesterday in men's singles in the sprint.
And again, looked like he had really nice lines, good run. Little bit of a direction off of S4 there, but handled it really nicely. Looks really relaxed on the sled.
Well, even when the runs are rough, you're in Königssee, one of the most beautiful spots in the world. And that, again, is Tatjana Höfner, the winningest world champion woman ever with 5 gold medals in her storied career, to go along with 3 Olympic medals, 1 of each color. Now we move on, Alex. No matter what happens to this man today, he will walk away from Germany with a big smile on his face, won't he?
Yes, it's yesterday's sprint world champion, Nico Gleicher.
He joins his brother, who's an Olympic champion, now as a world champion for Nico. Slow start.
Yeah, a little bit slower at the start. We'll see if he can make up some time here down the track or if it's going to carry. Close right now as he enters the S corners. Nice exit of S4.
Yeah, he was dialed in yesterday, and he's still relatively close, at least compared to the last several sleds.
Yeah, and it's a fine balance, whether you drive more to make that exit of S4. Oh no, he's having some issues here at in the Say and Echo wall, or Fent corner. We'll see how that plays out at the end here.
Yeah, he lost all sorts of time down at the bottom. He was keeping it close and was in a position for a top 5. I didn't really catch those errors in which you spoke, but it'll be interesting to see on the replay.
Yeah, if we see it, it looked like it started in the chicanes. He just didn't set up Kelstein well and had some high, late, and and this is the exit of S4, a little direction off, and as I was saying, it's a bit of a balance of whether or not you drive hard enough to make it really nice or kind of let it drift over and not make too many driving corrections. This looked okay here, really high in Kelstein and early to Say there. So it's not a part of the track that we see really well on TV, but it can be pretty critical to the run.
The humidity is down even though the temperature is up, so we expect the track will stay in pretty good shape. That's the closest you're going to see to spectators on this pandemic World Championship weekend. Those are all coaches and supporters watching the big screen. On course now, Kevin Fishnaller, who last week captured a share of the World Cup overall title in the sprint event, sharing it with Felix Loch, esteemed company.
Very esteemed, and Kevin has some breakout performances, so he is one of those athletes who could definitely challenge here. A little bit tougher being later in the order, but not too far back right now.
Which actually begs a question that comes in that Ken tweets in this morning, Alex, wondering, wouldn't it be a much more exciting race if the seeded athletes went at the very end of the first run as they do in the World Cup? Your thoughts?
That's a tough call to make because on one hand, being one of the top athletes, it's kind of nice at the World Championships, if you have a good season, to have earned the opportunity to go earlier in the race and get some of the good ice, but it also does mean that it's, the best conditions are going to go to the top athletes, and some of the other athletes who may have an opportunity if they get a chance on that better ice to be more in the mix.
Sure.
Don't have that opportunity, but it's a hard call to make because this is such a large field for World Championships. You don't want the top athletes in the world
to be going an hour and a half. Yeah. After the race starts, we have learned over the years that at least in snowy or rainy conditions, sometimes middle of the field is the best spot to be. So now we have young Gian Spurgeons who just a year ago this weekend captured the Olympic gold medal, that being the youth Olympic gold medal, which was held in St. Moritz, Switzerland, where we're all headed next week.
Yeah, a really young, up-and-coming athlete from Latvia, and we'll see how he can do here on the World Championship stage.
Big hit out of S4.
Yeah, he came hard out of S4 and hit that right side, so not a great line there, and let's see how he coasts the chicanes.
Just 18 years old still. He defeated Pavel Rapilov at those Youth Olympics last year. Versions had that one big mistake, and we've learned that mistakes, especially at the top part of the track, compound all the way down.
Definitely, if you make a mistake at the start, it's really hard to come back from that because you're just starting to build your velocity, and mistakes like this here, higher up in the track, make it really hard to maintain your speed through the flatter and uphill sections of the course.
This is the 8th time the World Championships have been held on this historic track in Königssee, Germany. The first time was in 1969, the year they finished construction of the first artificially refrigerated track in the world, and most recently in 2016. And again, and look at Váci, the mascot, named after nearby Václav Mountain. Loch leading by just 0.02 of a second. That was the differential earlier today in the doubles competition after the first run. Max Langenhahn currently in 3rd place, and a look at all of the top 14 as we get ready for the final German and the first 2 Americans who are the next to go. Wake up, the action is still happening here. Now Moritz Böllmann. He's the youngest of these Germans, just 20 years old, so he'll be in this little under 23 competition, race within a race. And I got to wonder what 2 other pretty solid Germans, Sebastian Bley and Chris Eisler, are feeling this weekend, because they were left off of the team at the World Championships. And yesterday, Böllmann failed to qualify for the sprint, so he really needs to put it back together to justify his spot here today.
And within that German team, because there's so much depth, you really have to earn your spot on the team, and if you don't perform in a race, then you big skid there.
Giant skid before the S's.
Yeah, that combination at the top there can be a little bit tricky for the men. We haven't seen anyone struggle with it yet, but you get a lot of sideways pressure off Teufelsmüller, so interesting to see that come from one of the Germans.
You were saying earlier, Alex, that this is the only track in the world where the athletes know the curves by name instead of numbers. I know there are other tracks where announcers and spectators know curve names, but it's numbers everywhere else, right?
Here in St. Moritz, actually.
Okay.
So, yeah, the track here is, I honestly probably couldn't tell you the number of the corners. I know them all by names, except maybe the top corners. For the men, women come into a corner called Teufelsmüller, and then above that I'm less familiar, and I think they are mostly, they have some numbered and some named above that.
It's the only track, by the way, where the lugers, at least with the men, start at a higher spot on the mountain than bobsled and skeletons. Now Chris Masder, the veteran American Olympic silver medalist, now 32 years old, originally from Massachusetts, grew up in Saranac Lake, New York, and now lives in Salt Lake. Not only an Olympic silver medalist, not only the busiest man on the hill this week in singles and doubles, but Alex, he just got married and will soon be a father. That's a busy man.
He is definitely going to be a very, very busy man in a few months. Congratulations to Chris and his new wife, and look forward to their child coming up here.
Aside from all of his competition and his duties as an athlete representative, Chris annually does a plunge into nearby Lake Königssee to celebrate the winter. I'm not sure if he did. I haven't seen a social media posting of that yet.
I don't know if he's made the swim in Königssee, but I think he's made a couple of winter plunges into lakes this winter, so he's braver than I am to jump in that cold water.
Relatively speaking, this is a pretty solid run compared to the last several. Will it be top 10 is the question.
Yeah, he's looking really good here.
14th place, losing about 0.3 of a second on the final few curves. It's a tight labyrinth section there before heading uphill. But safely into run number 2, I would suspect. Of these 40 athletes, the top 25 will get a second run.
Yeah, I think Chris will be safe there in the second run, and he's really close in with the Austrians who just previously came down. So opportunities to improve on his current position in the second run.
Once again, the next starter on your start list, Pavel Rapilov of the Russian Luge Federation, will not start. He pulled out of the competition, so we move to our second of 3 from the USA. This is Johnny Gustafsson. He's very quick here at the start usually, and that matters in Königssee. Much more on the lower start, of course.
Yeah, the men come into a more downhill section, but start is always important. The more velocity you can carry into the track, the more of an advantage you have carrying on down if you make no mistakes.
Johnny is having trouble there in the Jenner curve in the bend away before Kreisel. So he'll lose all sorts of time. He'll probably be out of danger the rest of the way because he's slowed down so much.
Yeah, really unfortunate to see him come out of S4 and have some problems there and not be able to recover. And that will definitely put him well back of the leader of the race.
So Johnny Gustafsson crosses back in 17th place, and it'll be interesting to see if he gets a second run because there are plenty of good competitors still to come. A little update, Margit Dengler, who's the media representative for the International Luge Federation, has just messaged into me saying that Chris is definitely jumping in snow this winter instead of jumping in the water. So, you know, he always needs some sort of thrill.
Fair enough. It looked like they got a bunch of snow in the last week here in Königssee before the weather warmed up, and I've seen some videos of people jumping into pretty large snowbanks, so looks like some fun was had in between training sessions.
It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye, right?
And then it's a sport.
Here's Josef Ninnis, and losers come and go, but Josef sticks around. He was around when you first started. He was already competing on the World Cup. That's how long this 39-year-old's been at it.
Yeah, Josef has been here on the World Cup for a long time, and he is just a really steady athlete, having a bit of a mistake there, but typically is pretty consistent.
He will turn 40 this year. It'll be interesting to see if he stays with it. Ninnis has been known for some great driving down at the bottom part of these tracks. One career World Cup podium in a sprint race in Sigulda 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's great to see him break onto the podium, particularly only 2 years ago. So, still improving, and even later in his career. We'll see how he does here.
Ninnis in 15th place. So that's the Slovakian teammate, Katarina Simanikova. We should see Slovakia take part tomorrow in the relay. They've been a fixture week in and week out.
And this is where Ninnis had a little bit of a problem tapping the wall out of lean on. And you can see that's just where women's start comes in and has some bit of a skid through Tori Fishnaller.
Ninnis through with run number 1, and we get set at the top for our third of 3 from the United States. Hard to believe Tucker West is now 25 years old. It seemed like he was a teenager forever when he was winning his first few World Cup races. Always also known for very quick starts. It's a good look at those spikes on the gloves, Alex.
It is a good look at the spikes. Good to see what we're hitting the ice with, and everybody's spikes are a little bit different. So
Tucker has a couple of World Championship podiums, both in the relay discipline. He's way in back, already 1400s out, and I'm not sure what we can attribute that to.
No, it looks like he was doing well. A little bit of a bump off there, S4 there, but handles it really well.
Speed at about 60 or 75 miles an hour, 76 miles per hour. Now he's stopped the bleeding, so to speak. He's lost another tenth, but we've seen other athletes lose a lot more here at the bottom.
Yeah, and we'll see if he can carry that speed through the finish.
Not bad. I mean,
not bad.
To do top 10 at that point of the run bodes well for the American, and more importantly, he's only about 1500ths out of top 6 right now, and it's been an up and down season for Tucker, so that has to go down as one of his more solid runs.
Yeah, and it's nice to see someone come down and break into the top 10 from this later group of athletes. So shows that the track is holding up to some extent, and he had a really solid run. A few mistakes here and there that he could definitely clean up for the second run, and work to improve on his current position in the race.
Andriy Manzi from the Ukraine had a nice surprise showing yesterday as he qualified for that sprint competition, normally reserved for the 15 elite athletes in the world, which Andriy usually isn't included among, so maybe he likes this track.
I imagine if he's like many of us, he does like this track. It's one of the common favorites among luge athletes. And really great to see Andriy have an opportunity to race in the Sprint World Championships. He's been improving year on year, and nice to see that work is paying off.
4 top 20s this year, including a 14th place in Winterberg.
And a couple little taps of his feet, so we'll see how that works for him coming down here. He's a little behind.
Again, only the top 25 make it into run number 2, so that's where the little competition is going to be happening among the next 10 or 15 sleds. 18th place right now for the Ukrainian. And if you're up watching, still morning in North America, middle of the afternoon now in Central Europe, thanks so much for joining us. At last count, 99 countries have tuned in to World Cup or World Championship Luge this season. And if you'd like to share your thoughts, your questions, your comments, or even your criticisms, you can find us on Twitter at LugeAnnouncer. You can also email me at luge.announcer@gmail.com. Maybe we'll start a little survey going as we make our way down the rest of the first run and see what kind of responses we get. There's a man of no small note, Alex.
No, one of the legends of the sport, Armin Zogler, one of the winningest men ever.
Actually, the winningest luger ever in terms of world championships and World Cup titles. Not to mention his 6 Olympic medals in 6 games, unmatched by anyone, any sport, summer or winter. That's a legend.
That is a legend. Now coaching the Italian team, imparting some of his experience and knowledge, trying to bring these young athletes up, and it's one of the young Italians in the track right now. Guffler.
He's just eating up the track.
Big skid. And a little overdrive trying to correct out of S4, and that just led to a really big skid, which will cost a lot of time.
We see a lot of taps at that spot, Alex. I have not seen in the 2 weekends of racing here a skid like that between Jenner Curve and Bendaway.
Yeah, and that's just a bit of, like, it's an overcorrection rather than letting it kind of tap the wall and just correct from there. It's trying to avoid the hit, and often that can lead to bigger problems than if you just kind of let it happen. And so yeah, he overcorrects there, and you can see the sled just start to break away and skid, and then build a big rooster tail, and that's a lot of time, particularly on this very soft ice.
Unfortunate and probably unlikely that we will see Gufla get a second run. Now Svante Koala, the lone entrant from Sweden, will see his sister Tova compete tomorrow in the women's competition. But it's been a pretty decent year for Svante, who's made it into the main draw, I believe, every weekend on the World Cup, out of the Nations Cup.
A young athlete who's on his first year or two on the Senior World Cup circuit, so really good to see that Sweden has some young up-and-comers that could be quite strong in the future.
Lotto is that big balloon in the background. That's the title sponsor now of this ice arena, they call it, in Bavaria, the Lotto Bavarian Ice Arena in Königssee. Now that's the Fent curve, and it turns uphill at this point.
Nice run from Svante here.
19th place run. So Felix Loch of Germany continuing to lead the way. In fact, Germany is 1, 3, and 4 in the standings, with 2 others from the Russian Luge Federation complementing the top 5. All other countries, including Austria, Italy, and Latvia, on the outside looking in at the moment. Sweden done for the day, likely, but run number 1 continues with our final Italian, Leon Feldera, 20 years old. He'll celebrate his 21st birthday tomorrow, in fact. And it was another Italian earlier today, Ivan Nagler. Today is his birthday, and he celebrated by winning the Under-23 World Doubles Championship.
It's a pretty good birthday present.
Yeah.
So, happy birthday to Ivan, and happy early birthday to Felder.
Do you have a winter birthday, Alex?
I don't. I have a spring birthday.
Okay, so you were never on tour. I'm on tour almost every year on my birthday.
Oh, yeah.
A nice quick recovery, and you can really get a good look now at how the track is, in fact, getting eaten up a little bit. They don't Zamboni it, so to speak, during a run.
No, they don't. In a snow race, they'll do some sweeping, but they don't really Zamboni it. They actually do it by hand. Track crew will come down with a hose and spray the track down to prepare the ice for a run.
Exactly. Spritz is the term, right?
Yes.
As Ziegler gets a little better result from Felder as he compared to what he just saw from Lucas Gufla. It's a young Italian team, but they have a lot of veteran coaches, so we may see these guys come on in the next few years.
Yeah, I would expect to see some strong Italian men coming up, and they have some of the best coaching them and bringing them through the ranks.
and the music is playing. And actually, yeah, as a correction, today is his birthday. Today's the 30th, right?
Today is
Indeed,
the 30th.
Yeah, so I was a day off. And again, the high five with the mascot Botzi, which on that subject, we have a tweet coming in from Craig, who I believe is up early like you in Calgary, Alex, watching the action today. And Craig was the one who made the suggestion. We did a little poll a few weeks ago during the World Cup of what the mascot should be called, and Craig said Vatsy. So they were listening to us.
Oh, they go.
Reed Watts. Wow, no one's more disappointed than him.
Reed Watts from Canada. Next line. Hey.
Watts is 22 years old. Of course, his hometown is Whistler. He was going to be sleeping at home for a World Championship until the pandemic moved it to here in Königssee. 12th place finisher at the Olympics. Watts across the finish, a half second back. A decent run this late in the field. 16th place for Canadian Reed Watts, the only Canadian in today's race, just behind Chris Masger of the U.S. These are the S-curves, among the tallest walls on the circuit. A good focus on the face of Reed Watts.
And good to see Reed have a decent run. You can see that he's, maybe not the happiest with it, but it was a solid performance, and hopefully he can improve on that in the second run.
Matthias Sokovic from Poland, 24 years old, finished 27th at the Olympics, and last year at the World Championships he had a 22nd place finish. 3 paddles, pretty smooth, chill settle. Here's some good trivia for you, Alex. How many World Championship medals has Poland won in the 49 past events? Can you guess, even ballpark?
Oh, I would not have even a remote guess. We haven't seen them on the podium, if at all, during my career, so I would expect it to be historical, but I could be very wrong on that as well.
Would it surprise you if I said 16?
It wouldn't. I feel as though they have quite a history of athletes in the sport. But yeah, that might be a little bit higher than I would have ever guessed.
Yeah, they were really, if not a power, they were a contender as he crosses in 18th place. They were a contender especially during the 60s and into the 70s when the sport was just heating up. And, one thing we should talk about is back then, prior to this track here in Königssee, all of the tracks were natural tracks built into the mountain. And that certainly was a lot easier to do than to spend multi-million dollars to build a track. And that did open up the nations a bit.
Yeah, it would make it a lot easier to have a track that is one you can compete on if it's built naturally. But that is a very labor-intensive endeavor, so we now compete on artificially refrigerated tracks. And the only track left that is mostly naturally built that we race, at least artificial track luge on, is in St. Moritz.
And that will be the site of next week's race. Here's Anton Dukash, who's had as high as a 20th place finish at the World Cup in late December in Winterberg. And he lists, Alex, among his hobbies, sunbathing. Is he in the wrong sport?
He might be. It's a winter sport. It's tough to sunbathe while you're traveling from wintry track to wintry track. But
although he's sort of in the sunbathing position right now, especially on a warm day here in Bavaria.
We do get the odd really nice sunny day where you just want to sit out in the sun, but they are rare, and you may want to look at a summer sport for that, but you're also not competing during the nice sunny summer months, so he gets to enjoy those months while
20th place for Dukash as the 28th to go. So 12 remain, and he's probably in a pretty good shape to end up in the top 25.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to make a push to be in that group that makes the second run, and it looks like he had a pretty good performance here on the track, and that should get him into the second run.
Well, a shout out from Gav, who is up watching today in the UK. Good afternoon, Tim. Quick shout out to the Great Britain Luge Association, and aptly timed with his tweet, because here is Rupert Staudinger. Of course, Rupert's from right here in Berchtesgaden, goes to college in nearby Salzburg, but he is a dual citizen and has proudly represented the GBR in his luge career.
Nice top section of the track here for Rupert. Looking like he's going to have a solid run here. About just over a quarter of a second behind.
He knows the track well, and he now enters the 360-degree Kreisel corner. Let's see if he can have a clean exit. This will bode well for a top 25.
No, he doesn't, but he manages to recover into Kelstein and Say. But that skid will definitely cost him some time.
Now to the finish. This is going to be close. Visibly slower as he makes it on the number at the moment. 25th place. He knocks American Johnny Gustafson out of the second run, but he'll still have to wait nervously, biting his fingernails, to see if he gets a second run.
You can see the disappointment there. He knows he's on the bubble, and oh, too bad. It's so close to being through there clean and safely into the top 25, but he'll have to wait and see if anyone can come down ahead of him.
By the way, if you would like to learn more about luge, you'll see some fun videos done by Rupert on the FIL website and YouTube channels. Professor Luge, as he gives a look at the insides of this sport, the equipment and the athleticism. Now Vali Cretu, the 31-year-old Romanian on course. 12 years on the World Cup. And as he told me right before the season, he's still trying, doing everything he can to improve. And when you don't end up on the podium or anywhere near it, that's at least a pretty good goal to have.
It is, and it's he's definitely had some great performances from that perspective, and having a decent run here, a few little mistakes. We'll see how that works out at the bottom. Definitely one of the athletes just trying to make it into the second run. We'll see if he's in the top 25.
He's finished as high as 23rd this year on the World Cup, and he is in the top 25. He knocks Staudinger out of the race, and he sits in 22nd place right now. It was a very tough morning for Romanian doubles, both sleds crashing in that competition.
You can see there his assessment of his run, kind of so-so, and
he's hard on himself.
All athletes are worst critics, so I understand that sentiment for sure. A few little mistakes here, a little bump off of S4, a little skid at the top, and then just a little rougher in the bottom, but enough to get him into the second run.
19-year-old Marian Skupek, competing in his first ever World Championship. So we wish him the best of luck. Still a part-time student, part-time slider from Slovakia, and the juniors are actually getting a great opportunity this year despite the pandemic throwing everything into a loop. There is no junior tour, so almost every nation has brought a few young athletes who otherwise we wouldn't have seen.
And that's a great opportunity for some young athletes that are about to transition from junior to senior to have an opportunity to race on the senior World Cup circuit and get a feel for the jump that that does happen between the junior and senior levels. And having a reasonably okay run here. He's made a few little mistakes, but holding it on a pretty good line.
Marian Skupek crosses in 27th place. We didn't really expect a second run for him, but at least it was a single run without any major incident. We're winding our way down to the final 10 or so here in run number 1. 8 to go. I'm going to throw one out while we have a little time to chat with the audience. And if people have your own comments, greatest men's luger of all time here as we have the men's singles competition going on. You got Prock, you got Zugler, Hackl, Felix, Loch, some Hans Rinn if you want to go back a ways. Sam Edney. You like that one? Who's your choice? Who's the greatest men's singles luger of all time and why?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah. I'm not putting you on the spot, Alex, as much as our viewers, but I'd love to hear your opinion on that too.
Oh, I'd probably go with Armin Zogler, just with how impressive his career was and the number of wins and Olympic medals that he was able to achieve, and just the consistency of his career.
This 20-year-old Josef Hušla, also from Slovakia. Gotta love the fact the Slovakians have brought a lot of athletes on tour this year. Yeah, I mean, Armin is absolutely the full package if you mix World Championship, World Cup, and Olympic performance into the equation.
Yeah, he's had such an impressive career, but Hušla here having a pretty good run, and it is really great to see so many young athletes coming out and racing here at the World Championships.
28th place, and Katerina Simonakova is getting a lot of airtime down there in the coaches area as she prepares for her race tomorrow.
And that's a really good shot there of how close the men's athletes get to the top of those S2 and S3 corners.
And a quick hello to Jakub Zimanek from Slovakia, longtime competitor for that nation who retired mid-season this past year, but rode in to say hi a little earlier today. Now Michal Lešik from Czech Republic. And again, if you're keeping score, the Czechs also have 2 historical World Championship medals over the years. You probably have to go way back to the days of Czechoslovakia for that. But still 2 bronze medals. 1 in women, 1 in doubles.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of responses here, Alex, and it's Ken, always up early watching in North Carolina with his great website he maintains, slidingonIce.com. I'll give his answer in a second. Gav also has a response to greatest in the world, but let's see what Lešik can do down here at the bottom.
Having a pretty good run. No big mistakes that have happened, so Lešik can be happy with that, and not going to make the second run, but...
Yeah, doing the paddle motion there is your good friend, the Polish bear, Maciej Kurowski, who retired from Poland a couple of years ago and is coaching all of the small nations now as part of the FIL program.
And it's great to see someone like Maciej come back and take over coaching the FIL program. It's a group of athletes from nations that don't have their own centralized team. The FIL supports them and helps them to travel from race to race and provide some coaching, and it's great to see us get more and more smaller nations out and get them some great coaching from a very experienced athlete.
Next up, we have our first Korean in the men's competition. This is Nam Kyu Lim, finished 30th at the Olympics on his home track. He's now 31 years old, although if you look at his profile picture on the media guide, he looks about 14. So Ken's comment on this, Alex, is that right now, Armin Zugler is the greatest. But if Felix Loch decides to stick around, he could in fact pass Armin, and for sure. I mean, Felix and Armin both have the 2 Olympic medals. They're the 2 winningest World Cup athletes. So that's a great point.
It is. I mean, Felix is definitely got his name in the record books, and he'll be a legend in the sport.
And if he wins later today, he'll pass Armin as the all-time gold medal winner at the World Championship, 7-6. Lynn crosses in 32nd place. Here
a bit of a rough run for him.
High up on a lot of walls, right?
Yeah, and a few little taps here and there against the... you can see one here on S2. That's a little bit of a scary one, as it's a quick change of direction, but handled it well there. And same thing here, very high in Kelstein, and a little tap before Say. So just a bit of a rough run. No big skids or major mistakes, but those will add up down the track and cause you to lose a lot of time.
Next up, we have an athlete who's so good he commands not one, not two, not three, but four names. Theodor Andrea Aurelian Torea. 22 years old, the final of the Romanians in today's competition. He competed at the Olympics as a teenager, finishing 31st. And Sam Edney does get a vote, Alex. He gets a vote for definitely the best mustache in luge history.
Oh yes, that I could see that being the case. Ooh, big tap on S3 there.
He rode high there and paying the price, skidding all over into the Jenner curve.
He almost had it recovered there, but just wasn't able to pull it back on line. You can see him quite a bit lower now on the walls of Kreisel there, and that's just a matter of how much speed he lost in the bend away.
Alex, is so remarkable. That's about the 7th or 8th major hit we've seen today. We've had 4 or 5 crashes, and almost always these athletes walk away. Is that because of the sport is safer than it seems in our eyes, or because of conditioning and instinct from these great athletes?
It's probably a combination of both those things. It looks probably more dangerous, and like crashes might be more severe than they actually are from a spectator position. And you know, the track is a contained environment, and so even when you do crash, you're staying within the track and sliding on ice, which doesn't feel great, but it's not going to cause too bad of injury or damage. It's not like bobsleigh where you have a big bobsled sliding on top of you if you crash, but definitely doesn't feel good, but it's not.
Now, the worst that could happen is a high speed and just getting knocked and flying way off, but that fortunately doesn't happen that much. Winding our way down to the final few sleds here, run number 1, Germany's Felix Loch continues to lead the way. As importantly, Latvia's Riks Razitis is on the bubble in 25th place for a chance at a second run. And here is Nikolaev of Bosnia-Herzegovina. That's a country that had a track that probably just fell out of use a little before you became a luger, Alex. But I've been to that track in Sarajevo.
Yeah, no, the track definitely had fallen out of use before my time. I've seen some pictures of it, and with the conflict in that country in the early 90s, the track was damaged and it never was repaired and was taken out of circulation at that point.
They've actually restored the Sarajevo track a little bit for summer wheeled events, which is great to see.
Yeah, they patched up all the concrete. They don't have a refrigeration plant anymore, so they don't hold winter events, but they are able to wheel slide in summer on it, which is really nice to see them utilizing that venue.
Back to our poll here for a second. Gab goes on to say seriously after the mustache comment that it's close between Zugler and Hackl in his mind. And of course, George Hackl has the 3 Olympic gold medals, 5 Olympic medals total, and he was sort of kind of a big game guy as Pavel Angelov paddles onto the course for Bulgaria. Huckel was kind of like one of those golfers that only enters the major tournaments. He really didn't care about the World Cup, was always experimenting, but did very well at the World Championships and the Olympics.
Yeah, and he treated the World Cups as opportunities to test sled technology and refine everything in preparation for the big events. Big problems here for Pavel. Lots of hitting down the bend away, and that's going to cost him a lot of time.
That is the Fent curve, newly named. Lots of skids here, but staying off of any hard hits now at the bottom part of the track. 34th place for Pavel Angelov. And Maciej puts it into perspective. Clean runs, down safely, the goal for these final several sleds. And this is really their only big race, Alex, because none of these guys even qualified for more than one World Cup this year.
Yeah, it's tough to qualify for World Cup. Only the top 32 qualify, and there's often 40 or more men, so they're, like I said, from smaller nations without as much support, so they don't necessarily have the same resources, but always great to see them out and competing and constantly improving.
That's a look at the field right next to the track. It's actually private land. You usually don't see that. It's usually part of a big venue. But this track sits right next to a farm in a large field, privately owned. On course now, Crăciun of Romania. I said earlier we saw our final Romanian. I was wrong. Edvard Crăciun, 20 years old.
And Romania also has brought out a few of their younger athletes, and Crăciun will be making the transition to the Senior World Cup circuit here as he's starting to age out of juniors, so good to see him having a reasonable run down the Königssee track and into the Fent corner.
Well, while we're on the subject of greatest of all time, I mean, the thing about Armin Zugler, and you were just talking about age, Zugler won his first Olympic medal at the age of 20, and he won his final Olympic medal way into his 40s. So if nothing else, the ability to sustain such excellence for so long gives him a little head up on the rest of the world.
Absolutely. He was, I believe it was Lillehammer that he won his first Olympic medal, and I think he came off a Junior Worlds to race at the Olympics, and then raced his final Olympics in 2014 in Sochi.
Yep.
So
exactly. Now
very lengthy and
Chishenu, the second to last to go here from Moldova, 20 years old. He'll be followed by one final athlete from Poland. It's appearing more and more that Rix Rositas, sitting in 25th place, will have earned start position number 1 in the second run. Why Königssee, Alex? Why is this the favorite track of, I would guess, 75% of the lugers in the world?
It has some elements that are pretty unique to Königssee. The S corners are one of those. Big problems there for Siskanu, but and then the Kreisel into chicanes. It can be tricky, but when it's right, it's one of the most fun sections of track to slide down. So just the unique features that are attributed to this track that don't tend to be on any other tracks.
And
of course,
it's a great place to come to.
I was going to say also the surrounding area, you can't really be beat.
No question about it. With the charming village, the ski area nearby, as Chishenu is in 36th place, one more still to come. And have you ever been out on the lake?
I have. We were actually in Königssee a number of years ago when the lake froze.
A rare
completely.
occurrence. Yeah.
And it's a very rare occurrence. so rare, in fact, that there were in the range of about 10,000 people a day that would drive out to Königssee to walk the lake. Typically, you take a boat trip across the lake, and there's a church on the far side. Such a beautiful area, though, right in the mountain valley.
No question about it. If you ever get the opportunity, hop on that boat. It's one of the most peaceful, beautiful experiences. Königssee literally at the end of a road, which ends at the lake. Now our final competitor in run number 1 of this World Championship from Germany. Start number 40, Poland's Kaspar Tarnowski, 21 years old. And he is skidding all through the S's.
And he's pulled it back online through S3 and S4. And back offline through Bendaway. Really unfortunate to see him hit the whole way down. That scrubs so much speed.
So the pinball machine effort through that section knocks all of his speed off. That'll at least keep him a little safer down here at the bottom. Fastest time of the day was a track record of 48.803, and this time is 4 seconds slower than that, but still in one piece, still connected to the sled. Kaspar Tarnowski of Poland.
Unfortunately, he came off his sled through the outrun, and big thumbs up and smile, but very rough run from this last athlete here.
I mean, that's reminiscent. I've never been on a luge sled more than a couple of 100 meters, but that's when you're steering and that awful feeling, like you try to correct this way and then you have to correct the other way and then back the other way. And it can really set off some awful things, but fortunately turned out okay. Felix Loch, things turned out very good. Check that out. 0.02 of a second separating the multi-time world champion with the defending world champion Rapilov. A look at all of the 40 finishers here as Mazder and Watts and Tucker West all qualify in the top 16 for the North Americans. And then leading off the next page, Rix Rositas in 25th place. He will be the first to go. Poor Rupert Staudinger here on his home track, just missing out, actually by 1 place, but by quite a bit in the time. Since 1955, in every non-Olympic year, the biggest event on the annual luge calendar has undeniably been the World Championships. And that's where we are here in Königssee, Germany, for the 7th time Bavaria is hosting the Worlds. On a warm afternoon with the temperature now approaching the mid-40s on the Fahrenheit scale, the humidity holding steady at about 70%. A little rain may be expected later on in the afternoon. Hi everyone, I'm Tim Singer. Here's a look at the profile of this 1,346 meter track, one of the longest and one of the oldest in the world. Now we're getting set for run number 2 of this men's World Championship competition. Earlier today, they held the first heat. Max Langenhahn, the young 21-year-old, in the hunt for the gold medal in the under-23 competition and very much in the hunt for a podium position in the main race. Roman Rapilov of Russia is the defending world champion, and he is in the hunt just a matter of thousandths of a second behind Felix Loch. Loch, the 2-time Olympic champion, looking at history. A win today would make him the all-time winningest world champion competitor. He has 6 world titles in his storied career. Well, here's a look at the start list. Of the 40 that began the day, 25 have qualified for run number 2. Right now, I'm pleased to introduce my co-commentator, one of the greatest in the history of Canada luge. It is 2-time Olympic medalist Alex Goff. Alex, what are we looking to expect here in run number 2?
I think we can expect some great racing. There's really close competitors here, time-wise, from the first run. You can see here in the end, the grouping is only that's only 0.3 back. So those athletes could definitely see some movement between where they're ranked right now. And then obviously the top-ranked competitors will put on a show for us afternoon in Königssee.
It's incredible, just 0.02 of a second separating the top two. That was the situation earlier today in the doubles as well, although the team of Egert and Beneken opened it up in run number 2. As we don't have spectators, we just have coaches and horses, equines, checking out the World Championship action. We're just happy they're staging event in this pandemic season. So kick back, they will count them down from 25-1 with Felix Loch, the first run leader, the last to go. Fire up the Lotto balloon here at the Lotto Bavarian Ice Arena on the Watzmann Mountain. That waterfall, a beautiful backdrop right behind the men's start location. And here is Latvia's Riks Rositas. The 26-year-old just made the race number 2 here, the second heat on the number, ahead of Great Britain's Rupert Staudinger.
Rick's had a bit of a rough first run, so he'll be looking to clean that up this run and try to improve on his 25th position rank right now.
Exactly. He wears bib number 10 because he was the 10th to start, so he was among that seeded group before having those problems. This is the 360-degree Kreisel, shooting the athletes down to the lower, challenging labyrinth.
And this is an improved run for Rick's. He's cleaned up some of the small mistakes he's had, so I know he's going to be hoping to move up and good run from him there.
Well, 49.586 for run number 2 is 0.2 of a second faster than his first run time. We will probably see slower times from most of the contenders here late in the afternoon of a warm day. All right, just getting warmed up now for run number 2, early stages. And if you have comments, questions, criticisms, or insights earlier rather than later here in the second run, we'd love to hear from you. On Twitter, you can find us at Luge Announcer. You can also email us, luge.announcer@gmail.com. And Alex, we had a little survey going, best male lugers in the world during run number 1. And Luge moms write in with their vote for Armin Zugler because he's not only the greatest with the results, but he also shows character, behavior, respect, and representation of the country. So that's pretty well put.
It is very well put. He is known as a very sportsmanlike and great competitor, and has come back as a coach for his own nation of Italy, but he is very conscientious of ensuring that he imparts knowledge where he can.
Rositas with the lead, Kohala in the green, but losing that advantage, just 0.03 of a second now in the fent curve. And look at that, he opened it up a bit down at the bottom, 0.1 of a second. Great showing for the Swedish athlete, who, as we mentioned earlier, has qualified for every World Cup race this year. Sweden has been nothing more than part-time representatives on the World Cup the last several years.
And really great to see him have a solid second run here and hold his position, and also we'll be looking to try to move up the ranks a little bit. But really, really consistent and great sliding from the Swedish athlete.
That's Einar Svogalis standing alongside Tatjana Höfner, one a great Olympic champion, the other the newest president of the International Luge Federation, Einar Svogalis of Latvia. For 30 years he's been involved with the sport at the Latvian Federation and as the Secretary General, most recently on the international scene. Now Andre Manzi, the third starter here in run number 2. That means he was in 23rd place after the first heat, the 32-year-old from Kremenets, who we mentioned yesterday, Alex, qualified for the sprint event, which was a great achievement.
he did qualify for the sprint event, which is great to see. Only the top 15 athletes qualify into the sprint, so really impressive to see Andre Manzi qualify into that race, and hopefully he can have another great run here and continue to build on his success this season.
67 thousandths up at that last split time. We have one more split here at the exit of Kreisel. Now he's lost the advantage, falling behind Sweden. Okay, so now on the final few curves, Manzi in third place, trailing the field at the moment without a lot of huge error, but you know, there's more to it, right, Alex? I mean, there's driving athletic ability, driving ability, equipment, knowledge of the track.
Definitely, and here you see the exit of S4 where he comes around to the end of the corner quite high, and it almost looks like he slides a bit sideways off the corner there, so that could be one of the areas where he did lose some time. Things that you don't see necessarily in the regular speed run, and also there's just nuances that you can't see as well from the spectator point of view.
Two-time Olympian Valentin Cretu, 22nd place here at the World Championships after the first heat, 31 years old. And playing off of our survey, best luger in men's luge history, Marcus weighs in with his comment: among the best male lugers of all time is often forgotten Tomas Kola, an Olympic gold medalist in singles and doubles, as we see Cretu having some issues there entering the Kreisel.
Yeah, big problems for Valentin down the bendaway. Really too bad to see that. It's going to cost him a fair amount of time and likely a couple of positions.
Vali Cretu, part of the deep, if not strong, Romanian program. Looking forward to seeing his teammate, Luca Strama-Turaru, tomorrow in the women's competition. Cretu back in fourth place. And continuing that thought with Marcus Cyron about Thomas Kohler is that he was infamous as being part of the East German program late in his career. Controversial program, so he may have lost some fans there, but he put in the results. Well, Cretu with some trouble there.
Yeah, just couldn't correct and get back online after the first hit on the wall, and carried it through the bendaway all the way down, which is really too bad.
The Lotto Ice Arena, the Great Britain program, watching. Unfortunately, as we mentioned, Rupert, who's there on the left waving at the camera, did not get a second run. But here's the first of the Italians, Leon Feldera, 20-year-old. Today is his birthday, and he celebrates by qualifying for run number 2. And in case you missed it earlier today, the top-ranked Italian, Dominic Fishnaller, crashed in the opening run, and surprisingly is out of this competition. Alex, yeah, it'll be interesting to see tomorrow, because Italy is certainly a contender in the relay for a podium. Did they come back with Dominic despite the fact he crashed out today? What would you do?
That's always a very tough call. It's a bit of a different mentality in a team event where you really want to put the best athletes forward, and everyone on the team feels the same. So in a situation like that with our team, the top athlete in the individual race would get the spot, and if they felt another athlete who didn't do as well or crashed could perform better for the team, they may give that spot to that athlete.
Sure, they have the option to seed it. With Italy, it would be interesting, though, because Kevin Fishnaller will probably be the top ranked, and he's been pretty decent there. So maybe not Dominic's strength, but pretty good.
And Kevin is definitely a strong athlete, so we could see him taking that spot on the team relay. And some big problems there for Felder down the bendaway as well, tapping a few walls.
Thumbs down is his review, so he was a little harder on himself than we were. So Svante Koala continues to lead the way. to the surprise of some, I would imagine, but it's getting a little frosty here. Humidity at 70%. And now Anton Dukash, 25-year-old Ukrainian, has not represented Ukraine at the Olympics yet, but this is his third World Championship. He's got a big advantage here in the early going. This will be a fun one to watch because if he's relatively clean here, Alex, but loses time, then we know it could possibly be the track, at least in part.
Yeah, in part. Like I said earlier, there are definitely factors that play into it that we don't see. One of those being how the sled is set up, both for the conditions and based on the athlete. If an athlete isn't as confident on a track, they'll have a safer setup, which means sharper steels, which does lead to slower speeds. But Kohala there picks up another spot. So a great performance from the Swedish athlete, and unfortunate for the Ukrainian.
It's a top 20 for Svante Kohala. That's guaranteed at this point, and that's going to be one spot away from his best result ever, which was a 19th in a World Cup in Innsbruck, Austria. So he's saving the best for the biggest event of the year. Terrific showing. Again, he went early, so we don't know yet what's happening to this track. We'll start to get an indication with the next several sleds. Here's Gintz Bergens, last year's Youth Olympic gold medal winner. That event was held on the long track in St. Moritz, Switzerland. The finish times there are going to be some 15 seconds or so slower than here. And by slower, I mean longer. It's just such a long track.
And Gintz here is holding his position ahead of Kohala. Oh no, big problem there off of S4. Quite a hard hit. We'll see if he loses enough time here to fall behind or if he can hold on to his spot.
Well, his margin was a quarter of a second. That was the same issue he had in run number 1, if memory serves. He's lost a tenth already, and it could all disappear down here at the bottom.
And that could compound here as he comes into an uphill section of the track.
Well, he kept it in the green, losing most of that advantage, but holding onto his spot. So in the end, despite little activity on both runs, Bergens will have a top 20 performance here at the World Championships, his first Worlds. And the way this Latvia team keeps plugging along, I expect we're going to see this guy continue to improve.
Oh, I'm sure we'll see him get, wow. He cut a little bit of air there off that profiled section of the straightaway, but yeah, kind of a big problem there, but he held this spot, and I'm sure we'll see this young athlete improve as he's on the senior circuit longer.
Mateusz Sokovic finished in 22nd place at the World Championships last year, which were held in Sochi, Russia. This year's Worlds, by the way, were scheduled for Whistler, Canada, outside of Vancouver, but all of the North American and Asian races were moved to Europe to keep the sport in a bubble. We're 9 out of 10 weeks in.
Really unfortunate to have to cancel those races in North America and the one in South Korea. But given the times that we're in and the pandemic, it's great that we're able to hold these events at all. So a lot of work on the...
sorry about that, Alex. We're having another one of those red-green
We
runs.
are.
We don't get a lot of those.
He's back ahead here, so
Sokovic.
we'll see if he can hold on through the final corners.
Okay, 139.083, his 2-run combined time. That puts him 0.04 of a second up on the Latvian. Good showing for Poland. and he will be the representative, no doubt, for a Poland team tomorrow in the relay, a team that has won a podium earlier this year on the World Cup. It's good look at the form.
Yeah, really good look at his form, really relaxed. You can see the body just like his body move with the bumps in the track, showing that his letting the sled run through the corners.
That's a video of a video. Now we have Josef Ninnis, who wears bib number 20. That was his start position in the opening run, but he's in 17th place. His first world championship was 2004. And I would guess that only the Sheiks brothers from Latvia can date their world championship career back that far among the active athletes.
Yeah, that's a ways back there, and impressive to see him still sliding and still improving. And
in fact, his result, his biography, he's been around so long, it has his Challenge Cup results. Do you remember the Challenge Cup?
I do. I was actually on the World Cup circuit for, I think, 2 years of the last 2 years of the Challenge Cup.
What exactly was that?
It was a head-to-head elimination race. So.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of like a tennis tournament.
Yes. And Ninnis picks up a fair bit of time there, finishing 2.22 seconds ahead. With a great run from the veteran Slovakian slider.
Pretty good, yeah, indeed. He trails the next couple by enough where he's going to really need some help to move up. But it will be a top 17 for Josef Ninnis. And that won't be his best all-time World Championship finish, but it'll be one of them. He finished 12th last year. Okay, so we turn our attention back to the top of the track. As I mentioned a few moments ago, these worlds were scheduled for this man's hometown, Whistler. This is Reed Watts. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Reed's father was going to be the race director of that World Championship event. Unfortunate. And Alex, I certainly hope your country is first in line for the next Worlds when they make that decision.
I believe that there is a opportunity for Whistler to pick up and host the 2023 or 2024 Olympics
24,
after the Olympics next year. Yeah.
It would be 24. 23 is in Oberhof.
Yes, that's correct.
That'd be great. They've earned it. I mean, it was tough to have that stripped away. Reed having a good run here as he approaches the Kreisel, 1200s up.
Yeah, so far so good for Reed Watts. He missed out on the sprint yesterday, but having a really good, a little bit of a skid there and some problems through the Kalstein-Say combination, and he's fallen behind. We'll see how much time that does cost him.
He went from green to red really quickly as he crosses the finish line in 4th place.
Really too bad for Reed. He was having a great run there, and just some late problems on the track after the chicanes, and he'll be disappointed with that.
49.735 is about 3,500 slower than his first heat time.
Good shot there of S3 as they come quite close to the roof, and there's you can see the skid in Kalstein that was the bulk of his problems.
One North American down, another getting ready to go. This is the first of 2 from the USA. Chris Masder, Tucker West up in a little bit. Johnny Gustafson did not qualify for run number 2. Masder, among all of the other things he's involved with, was recently named an athlete mentor for the Classroom Champions program. That's a not-for-profit organization, I believe actually based in Calgary, that works athletes working with students.
It is, yeah. I believe it's a program that was started by a former U.S. bobsledder, Steve Messler.
Yeah.
So great, really good for Masder to get involved with that program. That's, as athletes, we'd like to give back and and help to inspire young people in the next generation of athletes. But Chris is a very busy man, so I'm impressed that he's taking on that.
He's had good results at the World Championships aside from that silver medal at the Olympics. In fact, he finished 4th here in Königssee at the 2016 Worlds to the finish.
And having a really good run.
Yeah, solid. 49.318. That's actually faster than his first run time, which has not been the trend here in run number 2.
And you can hear him say that was good. So he's happy with his run, and good to hear. Chris is ending his day on a high note after a crash in the doubles competition. So
crash in the doubles, also failed to qualify for the 2 sprint events, men's and doubles yesterday. So this is a good finish. He will compete in the relay. That's a given. He and Jason Turdeman, the lone USA doubles entry. Let's hear what he has to say.
Well, we're probably out of here soon because Nico's going, but love you at home. Boom.
So he's projecting that Nico Glacier is going to knock him out of the leader box just like that. It's only 0.003 the difference between these two. Of course, Nico took the World Championship sprint yesterday.
And having taken that sprint competition, Nico will be looking to move up the rankings here, so he'll be pushing to have a better time for his second run as well. Currently in the green.
His first split will be our... Oh, he has a huge problem out of S4, so forget that advantage. That's going to turn red before Kreisel, and it does.
Yeah, really big problems there for Nico coming off of S4 and hitting the wall on the right side, and that's cost him a lot of time.
Unfortunate, but as I mentioned earlier today, he will walk away from Germany with a smile on his face and the title world champion, which he earned yesterday in the sprint. He and his brother sharing the podium, gold and bronze. We'll see David Glacier a little later on here in run number 2.
And Chris will hold on to that spot and move up 1, and he'll stay in the leader's box for another sled. Oh, big problems there off of S4. Just carried too much height to the end of the corner, and see Chris's reaction to his mistake. And we never like to see our competitors have big problems like that.
With the American continuing to lead the way here in Bavaria, we count them down from 13-1 as Felix Loch of Germany will be that 1, the final sled to go. Still wrapped up and staying warm. Alexander Gorbatsevich of the Russian Luge Federation grabbing the handles now. 3 Russians in the top 13. And it bears repeating. Due to previous infractions by Russian sport, they are prohibited from representing their country at Olympics and World Championships, thus the RLF instead of RUS, Russian Luge Federation. Big skid.
Yeah, big skid out of there. Yeah, as a result of the alleged doping and subsequent investigations from the Sochi Olympics, the Russians are still under some sanctions from that, but they are able to compete. Alexander had big problems there at the top, so he's in the red and will likely stay there through the rest of the run.
Now, final few curves and another late skid. How many positions will he fall back? Just 2, so it will be a top 15 finish. No worse. If this were a sprint after the weekend instead of before, he'd be in, so that's good. But nonetheless, after a 6th place finish last year at the World Championships, a little bit of a letdown for Alexander Gorbatsevich.
Yeah, you see him off the end of Teufelsmüller with just too much height and big skid there, and it's a slower section of the track, so mistakes there will definitely cost a lot of time.
229 athletes, officials, and coaches came to Königssee, and all 229 tested negative for coronavirus. A little fact and a positive one at that, as we continue on with the World Championship weekend. 12th place after the first heat here in the men's singles, Arturs Darznieks, the highest ranked Latvian and one of the funniest guys on tour. He's got about a 1/10 of a second advantage over the American after the first run. He's opened that up a little bit here at the top of the track.
Nice line out of S4, holding about a 1/10 ahead.
Wavering though, yeah.
Wavering down the bendaway. Just kind of got the drives down that bendaway section, let him get away from him. He's lost a fair amount of time with that hit.
Yeah, he's going to fall back into 6th or 7th position here, it would appear. Under the EBA Specia sign, the title sponsor of the World Cup. Check that out. That was that Master doing a little Latvian?
I do not know.
I think it was. Labdien, Kataviet. Nice job, Chris. Master moves from top 15 to top 12. Arturs had a lot of little mistakes the entire bottom half of this track.
Yeah, that tap before Jenner going into Kreisel was a big one and cost him most of his time.
Well, the Fent curve is what they renamed that finish curve, not the finish curve, but the one right there closest to the Kings Lake, Lake Königssee, in honor of the longtime FIL president, Josef Fent, a local hero and Olympic medalist from here in Berchtesgaden. Now, Moritz Böhlmann, former junior world champion, competing at his first senior worlds. He's part of that very deep Thuringian program out of Oberhof. Well, the Bavarians, Alex, get all of the headlines often, and some of the, admittedly the Olympic hardware. The Oberhof group might have more depth, more athletes.
Yeah, they do have a very deep program in that Thuringia region. And we see a lot of athletes coming up out of that program. So it will be interesting to see how the German team shapes up over the next few years. And bit of a mistake there from Böhlmann.
Wow, this track
tapping the wall.
It's been biting a lot of athletes, including the home nation athletes. He's got a big advantage here, but he's tapping back and forth.
Hit a couple of walls there down bendaway, so that's going to cost him some time.
Will it cost him 2/10 here at the bottom? Looks like it
will
may.
Be very close, yeah. They're going to compound as he comes into this flatter and uphill section, and there he goes into the red. And he won't be able to make that up through this uphill final corners.
First of the Germans crosses back in 2nd place, so the American Master has moved from 15th now to just one spot away from the top 10, which is good news for the USA TV crew that is airing this event later today on the main network. But unfortunate for Moritz Böhlmann, but it's all about learning, especially at your first World Championship.
Absolutely, and unfortunate to see him make some mistakes, but we will see lots more of Max Böhlmann as he gets further into his career. Mazda doing a little dance, celebrating another spot gained.
The waterfall backdrop once again at this men's start, the only luge start in the world that's higher up on the course than the bobsled start. Here's Wolfie Kindl. Long courses are Wolfgang Kindl's friend because he doesn't necessarily get the fastest start times, but he finds ways to pick up speed all the way down. The 2017 world champion.
Wolfie is an incredible slider, and he's what can be dubbed a bottom gainer, where he finds time the whole way down the track and builds on that speed.
Perfect exit of S4, 2/10 of a second.
Yeah, really beautiful.
If he can stay clean, I'm really interested to see what happens to the splits, because that will be a little bit of a portent to what we'll see with the final few. It's exactly the same to the 1,000th of a second.
Yeah, holding his time here, and that's really good to see through the big Kreisel corner. And We'll likely see him come down in the lead here.
He does. In fact, he opens it up a little bit down at the bottom, picking up an extra 800. That's a great sign of the track holding out, or at least just not deteriorating to a point where it would be non-competitive. So Wolfgang Kindl into the top 10 with American Tucker West on deck.
It's a good sign that the track crew has done a great job of handling these tricky weather conditions and ensuring that we have a good race despite the warm weather.
Tucker West finished 14th last year at the World Championships in Sochi, Russia. He'll be the final from the USA to go in a moment here. And he'll need to be perfect, Alex, because his advantage over that man, Kindl, is just 0.02 of a second after run number 1.
Yes, he will have to have a very good run here. Wolfie Kindl came down with a very nice run, so we'll see if Tucker is up to the challenge.
Unless something drastic happens here, Tucker West will be competing again tomorrow for the USA in men's singles as part of the relay. That's a discipline where the United States has captured medals at each of the last 2 World Championships.
Yes, with Johnny not... problems there as he skids a little bit. With Johnny not making the second run and Mazda having to race doubles as the only doubles team, we will likely be seeing Tucker tomorrow in the team relay.
Well, Tucker's mistake earlier may catch up to him down here, and it does. As the clock turns from green to red, he'll need to do something very special down here to recapture green, and it won't happen, 0.2 of a second back.
No, unfortunately we're into a flat and then uphill section, and there's just nowhere to gain speed here, and Tucker's going to fall back a couple of spots.
Will he fall back behind Mazda is the question. He does. Back 5 positions, so Tucker West can still have a top 15 finish here, but for the second time this season, he entered in the 8th, 7th, 8th, 9th position with a chance to move up. Instead, he moves down.
Yeah, that's got to be tough for Tucker to have that happen, but he's still a fairly young athlete, and I'm sure we will see him back and competing well in the future. Definitely had a few little mistakes that cost him that time. Otherwise, he was holding against Kindl, which is always a positive sign. You always want the reason you've fallen behind to be based on mistakes and not a question or unknown, or based on sled setup not being what it needs to be. So good to see that.
That was a quick peek of Felix Loch taking off the jacket, putting on the speed suit. He's coming up in 7 sleds. We count them down now from 8 to 1. And here is 2019 Sprint World Champion Jonas Müller of Austria. He's also a 2-time race winner on the World Cup. Both of those wins on his home track in Innsbruck.
Looking good so far here. The Austrian men's team is very deep, so I can expect them to continue to do really well in this race. And still in the green with some really good speed through Kreisel.
The Austrians took 2 of the 3 podium positions yesterday in the men's singles as part of the World Championship sprint. Mueller still in the green, looking to complete a top 8 performance as he crosses the finish line. Nicely done, 49.164 for the heat. That nearly matches his first run time. In fact, it's better than it. And he is in the lead with 7 remaining. It's Austria 1st and 2nd, USA 3rd, Germany 4th right now, with 7 still to come.
A little high off the end of S4 there, and comes down pretty steeply and just misses the wall. And here's a comparison between Wolfie Kindl and Jonas Müller as they go through the chicanes, and Jonas just missing that right inside wall. A little bit of a higher risk line, but both look really good.
Okay, down to our final 7 now. This is the latest in the day of any luge action all season long, as it's now about 3:30 local time. Kevin Fishnaller on course for Italy, the final of the Sud Tyroleans from northern Italy. They will be hosting the 2026 Olympics, and I can't wait to see that new track in Cortina d'Ampezzo.
Will be exciting to see how that track shapes up and see new athletes slide on it, and we'll get to see more of the new track in China as well over the next year.
Exactly, with its Finnish Kreisel, or there's a Kreisel somewhere, not a Finnish Kreisel.
Yes, for the first time in a long time, a new track has a Kreisel.
Fishnaller falling well in back of the Austrians at this point. Can he hold a top 3 is the question. That would keep him in the top 10.
It's going to be tight, really tough for him to... there we go.
Okay, so he can do no worse than top 9 for Kevin Fishnaller, who last year finished 8th at the World Championships. Also had a top 10 at the Olympics. He's kind of a big game player, not podium, but still very respectable.
Definitely. The men's field is a really tight field, and so to come out and have a result like that is still very respectable. I know all athletes are at this level are looking to be on the podium, but he will be the top finishing Italian, and
okay, well,
I'm sure happy with that.
Final Austrian coming up, with one Austrian in the lead, another in second place. Here's David Glacia. Flashback 1 year in Sochi. Glacia had the lead after the first run of the World Championships, looking to add world gold to his Olympic gold. And then as the final sled down, about midway down the track in run number 2, he crashed, and he was fine, but boy, was he bummed out. A chance to win a world championship on a track where the Russians were owning most of the results. Let's see how much he can atone here today.
Yeah, really too bad to see him crash last year in Sochi. Won't have the same kind of pressure on him starting in the second run in 6th position, so just an opportunity to try to improve on his first run and see how far that can take him.
Got about a 1400ths of a second advantage going into the run. It's just about the same, and a nice exit, although he's doing a little steering here towards Bendaway.
Yeah, a little wavery, but he's able to hold on and no skidding and navigate the Bendaway cleanly.
Speed at 76.5 miles per hour. Final few curves, as Alex said, it turns uphill after this fent curve.
Nice exit of that fent curve, and same through these last 2 corners. So
49.
Builds on that lead in a big way.
Yeah, in a big way. The question really isn't, does he move into the lead? We know the answer to that now. It's, can he put pressure, maybe even sneak onto the podium? He's about 2,500ths behind Pavlichenko of Russia next to go, a little further back from the 4th and 3rd place spots.
And that's what he'll be looking for, to try and sneak onto that podium. So we'll see if this run was enough to do that or not.
Glacia with the high five with event mascot Vatsi. Congratulations from his teammates. The Austrians hold the top 3 spots right now in the standings, with our final 5 getting ready. Here is Zeman Pavlichenko, the 2015 world champion. He took that title on the track in Latvia. Yesterday he earned a podium position in between the 2 glaciers of Austria in the sprint. And one thing we know, Alex, is we'll be watching the run. Pavlichenko won't be, because he keeps that head way back.
He does typically. You actually saw a rare moment there where he was looking for his entrance to Teufelsmüller. In the last couple of years, I've noticed that Simon has started to take the odd peek, and
well, he's just giving it away.
Big problems there, and
that's the price you pay, right?
It is. There, you have to find a balance between really ideal aerodynamic position and still being aware of where you are in the track and having a bit of a view forward so that you are able to anticipate any errors and not let them compound on you.
Well, the winner of the World Cup race last week in Innsbruck will fall well off of the podium, as we have now just 4 sleds remaining. We'll start be talking about those World Championship medals in a moment here, but you gotta like the showing of the Austrians, who are hanging tight 1, 2, 3 in the standings.
Definitely, and like I said, that Austrian men's program is very deep, and expect to see them doing well. And here we see him Summon coming off Teufelsmüller with a bit of a highlight line, and again off of S4, and he's done this a couple of times now, in the first run and in the sprint, where he tapped that right wall a couple of times, and he just doesn't handle it as well on this run.
3 of the final 4 from Germany. No spectators, no live spectators, but they all had the opportunity to make a little donation, have their spectator faces painted on the wall. All of the money going to charity, by the way. As we have Johannes Ludwig, the Olympic bronze medal winner from Oberhof. As we touched on earlier, he barely missed out making the Olympic team for Germany in both 2010 and 2014. So it was a great sentimental moment when he snuck onto the podium late in run number 4 at the Olympics in Pyeongchang.
Yeah, it was really great to see Johannes make the podium in 2018 and win that Olympic medal. He's a great competitor and a real classy athlete, so very good to see. And holding a lead here, and good line down Bendaway.
Trying to chase down the Olympic gold medal winner is the Olympic bronze medal winner, Johannes Ludwig, losing that advantage. Alex, this is going to be pretty close here at the end.
It's going to be very tight here at the end. Ludwig not having the nicest lines, but still clean, and we'll see if he's able to hold it through the finish.
He does not, as David Gleicher is 1 spot away from the podium now, repeating a podium performance from yesterday. Unfortunate for Ludwig, as you mentioned, nothing really to speak of from top to bottom, but it is late in the day, and he's the 62nd sled to come down the track in this race.
You know, it was really close right from the beginning, so any little small errors that we may not have picked up on as the athlete came down could have easily been a cost of a few hundredths of a second. Even that little tap there and just puts him a little offline, and you know, when we're talking about thousandths of a second, it's hard to measure what will cost you that amount of time.
Now for the podium, number 1, Max Langenhahn. He wears that number because he was the first off earlier today in run number 1. He's all but clinched the under 23 championship. All he needs to do really is get down safely. But can he be feeling the pressure, still just 21 years old, of winning his first ever world championship medal?
And absolutely, he's going to feel some of the pressure there, just how well he handles it as a young athlete. So far, so good. He looks really composed on the sled and really relaxed. So good to see from this young German athlete.
Speed is good, 76.5. It's also going to be tight, 800ths. That may be enough of an advantage for the German.
It's going to be very close. It's going to depend on how much velocity and momentum he carries up this uphill section.
He loses it. So David Gleicher, the Olympic champion, in shock, as he has now won 2 medals here at this year's World Championships. Langenhahn, he is crestfallen down there at the bottom. He still has a chance, pending what happens with these final 2 sleds. And the way this track has been, Alex, anything could happen.
Definitely, and you know, no really big mistakes to speak of. But in a race that's this close, it's the smallest of margins that can make the difference. And look at great position on the sled there through the chicanes.
He'll just have to sit and wait and see what happens. Now, we gotta love the smile, though. His first World Championships are in the books. And now it's the final Russian and the defending world champion, 24-year-old Roman Repilov. he could really make up for what has been an underperforming season with just one World Cup podium from a man who has been the strongest in the men's field the previous 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a down year for Roman Repilov, but I expect that he will come back and be looking for to be back on the podium consistently next year. He's got quite an advantage right now at almost a quarter of a second.
And a great exit. He's handling this Jenner bend-away section really well.
Really nice line through Kreisel, really even, no big loop.
This should be the lead and should set up a great duel between Repilov and Felix Loch, who are separated only by 0.02 of a second. The Russian coming down and across the finish line into first place. In fact, it's the fastest run of heat number 2. And Alex, that's a great thing to see this late in the run.
Yeah, really great to see. He had a beautiful run, and you know, nice to see just from a track ice conditions perspective. So this race hasn't been determined by the weather or the race or the ice conditions. It's
been determined
all
by,
up to the athletes.
Exactly, athletic excellence. All right, here we build things up to our final sled. Felix Loch, the 2-time Olympic gold medal winner. He's a 6-time world champion trying to dethrone the defending world champion. If Felix Loch ends up in the green down at the bottom, he will be the most decorated world championship athlete of all time. He has 6 golds, 2 silvers, no bronze in his career. Going for world championship number 7 to move out ahead of the great Armin Zugla.
A little bit of red in the clock there, as he doesn't have as fast of a start, but it's gone green again, and I think we'll see that potentially flip back and forth a couple of times on us here.
That's what happened to him in run number 1. It went from red to green and red to green. We know 3 different nations will be on the podium. That's guaranteed, but we don't know yet the athletes. Loch in the red midway down.
Yeah, we'll see how this works with the next split out of Kreisel, and he's going to need to make up a little bit of time here, and it's going to be very tough through the bottom section. As we've said, it goes uphill, so not very often that we will see that clock go from red to green at the exit.
If anyone can do it, he can, but he doesn't. Second place for Felix Loch, so it's 2 in a row. Roman Repilov of the Russian Luge Federation taking the gold medal. Felix Loch winning silver. That's his 3rd silver medal in the history of the World Championships, his 9th all-time podium. And David Gleicher, the Olympic gold medalist, shares the podium with these 2 great champions.
And it looked like not the best line through Torfesmüller there at the top of the track. It's a really tricky corner for the men. You get a lot of sideways pressure, so you're just not.
Well, that's how great you are, Alex, when you can be disappointed with a 2nd place finish at the World Championships.
I know, it's hard to fathom that you could be that good, and so for Felix it's win or nothing really, so
in many
he will
ways,
be disappointed.
Yeah, it's a role reversal. Repilov has had the down year and he wins the World Championship. Loch has had the dominating year and he falls 1 spot off. David Gleicher, with his 2nd bronze medal in as many days, has been very steady here in Königssee. A look at all of the top finishers. 25 started here in run number 2, 40 all told in this World Championship field.